back to the Table Rush Talk Show, where we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, marketing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Misha Zvagensov, and today's guest is Andrew Taylor, a grocery store cashier by day and the published author of 12 books by night. This is his first ever podcast interview, and he's here to remind us that even the most thoughtful overthinkers can take bold, creative leaps and maybe inspire you to finally share your story too. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very excited to be here. Finally got one of these up and
Yes,
running.
you're finally on a podcast. All right, Andrew, your site says that you teach people to dramatically build their character and live the life fantastic. That's bold. What does that actually look like for someone reading your self-help book?
The title is Tailored Time. So that's taking theater methodology of character building and applying it to life for teenagers through adults. So it's taking how, especially teenagers nowadays, idolize actors and actresses in the world, and both TV and movies and all other forms of media and social media world, and how those people build a character, certainly for public consumption, also in their own private life. I think they do it consciously. And that's the steps and how the process and system of that works, applying that to real life, not just how it is on film or how it is on stage or how it is in anywhere else. And so it's dramatically build your character and live the life fantastic. Fantastic being an acronym for full and novel, thriving and successful, totally in control.
Amazing. Do you have for that acronym, do you have a little spiel on each letter for fantastic? Like
What I just said, the full and novel, thriving and successful, totally in control. It's on the front cover of the Tailored Time book. And it's I came up with it in 2003 when I started writing the whole book. I actually read a book called How to Write a Self-Help Book. And sure enough, they said, come up with a catchy title and one that has, an acronyms in it or things that, how to, and then build from there. And so how to build and Tailored Time. There's a origin story for that. Would you like to hear that?
yeah, we'll get to it.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question first. Do you
Sure.
remember the self-help book back from 2000, early 2000s
The one I wrote or the one that
that you read that inspired you?
the book, the title literally was How to Write a Self-Help Book. Or it wasn't for dummies or wasn't for any other. It was just how to write a self-help book. And so I read it chapter for chapter while I was writing, and sure enough, the formula worked.
Amazing. And so you wrote both Tailored Time and the workbook as tools for conscious character creation. What's the promise inside those pages? What shift do you want readers to feel by the end?
I believe everybody on some level, every day they wake up, asks themselves and, quickly in succession, who am I? What am I? Where am I? When am I? And why am I? They may not do it consciously, and I believe most people don't, but the book and books teach one how to do that consciously and do it quickly and make sure that you know who you are in that moment, what you are, when you are, where you are, and why you are. And ultimately, what do you want to do today? And to presentize yourself in that moment and then move forward in that life on purpose. And I think that's especially for teenagers, also adults. And I think everybody needs that kind of self-help guidance to move them through the day.
I love that. That's amazing. So yeah, give me the origin story on the Tailored Time idea. Yeah, go
One
ahead.
summer, I was a uh, a golf caddy and at some country club. I am I would say, average golfer. Uh, Not great, but I'm a terrific talker. So I can talk a great game and coach a great game. And I could always read a, golfer and uh, help them, you know, go through the day. And my parents, when I first got the job, bought me a tailor-made hat, which is a golf brand because I am literally tailor-made. And it was a perfect, introduction, get the ball rolling and flying, conversation starter. And so when I started writing the book, it just became tailor-made, tailored time, because I figured it was tailoring one's time to in life to become something greater than you are. And I think it was a wonderful no-brainer for me of moving forward in succession and taking that, you know, simple hat garment and making it into something, you know, life changing.
I love that. The who am I? Why am I? All these questions, these I questions. Where'd you come up with these, or where the insight on all this?
I think for me, it was, everyone says, "Oh, what's the who, what, where, when, and why of what you're doing and what you're doing," and they gloss over it. For me, as an overthinker sometimes, or as a, deep thinker certainly, or as a, someone who really, tries to make life conscious, it was this is what people do, and I think everything that people do is about identity and trying to, either be some public figure or public presentation or something private, or people would always say, "Oh, they're exactly who you are when you meet them in person. Their public image is their same as their private one." And I always thought that authenticity and that integrity was, oh, that's something that's good news when you hear that about a person. So I always thought, hey, when I write a book, and especially for teenagers, and I was always a old soul teenager and someone who, would stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning solving the problems of the world with my friends. And so I thought, let's do this on purpose. What are the questions I ask myself every day I wake up and wandering through the halls of high school and things like that? And, what are all these people thinking about? And do I really care what other people think? And what am I thinking about? And how is that important? And when I boiled it down in the book of, how do I want to introduce the world? Uh, or introduce, like in the introduction, I put a little Calvin and Hobbes comic strip about how he builds characters. Dad was always telling him, you know, do this, it build character. So I came up with, how do you present your character every day? How do you presentize yourself? You ask yourself, who am I? What am I? Where am I? When am I? Why am I? And then the ultimate question in theater, and, what's your motivation? What do I want right now? And if you know those things quickly, you are way ahead of the learning curve when it comes to most people who are walking through life either in a coma or barely just reacting to things. And I think if you know yourself on purpose, you are way ahead of the learning curve. So I think that's, for me, if it's, what do I want to say right away in a self-help book, especially to teenagers, get clear with those questions. Get on point, and then, move forward. I think that's really inspiring.
I love that. Know yourself on purpose. I heard you say, is that your catchphrase, or did you borrow that from somebody? Or
Actually, it's Dolly Parton. There's a famous quote of hers where she would say, live life on purpose. And it's, people always think, oh, Dolly Parton, 50, blonde, you know. everything else that goes with her. But she is a smart billionaire, lady that has immense talent and long life, and just someone that, if you really look into her, she's got something a lot more going on than what she's going on. And I think that's really important. I mean,
Oh,
really impressive to me.
oh my gosh, she has had an incredible career. I mean,
Yeah.
decades and decades and decades. So you took that live your life or live
Your
life on
life on purpose.
purpose and then took that to know yourself on purpose.
Yeah. And to, live with purpose and persistence and, with passion and all those things that, I love alliterations. So I love, you know, persistent. It's in the book. Live with purpose and passion and persistence and to purpose. Those kind of things. So that those things became not just catchphrases, but they became, mantras to my little questions. What the why. That became my thing of, you know, what is my purpose every day to return worthy the love I'm given. Succinct, the love my parents have given me, the love my friends and family have given me, the every, encouragement or advice or guidance I've been given, return worthy of it. If that's not a, not just general, again, cliche catchphrase, that's something to live by. And I think for me, it's meant everything so that and again, keeping it conscious in your brain, not just reacting to things. I think that's been really important to me.
I
Very
love that.
grounding.
Very grounding. I love that. The theater background, tell me about that. How does that come into play? Do you have a theater background
I
or
do. I've always been my two sort of characterization words that I've used for myself are teacher and harmonizer. And I have a extensive theater background. I went to Interlochen as a drama major. I was a camper there for 7 summers and high school boys counselor for 6 in various years. I was honored camper there in 1987. Uh, and I have a lot of theater background, high school theater, community theater. Uh, I've done, you know, both in front of the stage and behind it. So I've done crew work, and I've done a lot of radio. I was the station manager up in Interlaken for a student run radio. Uh, and I have an extensive, um, collection of movies and DVDs and TV shows of like 2,800 discs. So, and I love watching the bonus material for all those movies. It's not just watching the movie, but how they were made and what the actors and actresses discuss in their interviews, and how the special effects are done and how the direction is done, and the uh the cinematography and the music and how everything's put together, and all that stuff of listening to all the extra hours of bonus material. You really see some trends and some patterns and people saying same things over and over again. And if you apply those to life and you're building your own character, again, on purpose, it's amazing how it really applies. And you look at it and, hey, that little conflict resolution script that actor was talking about, that worked. Or some line in a movie somehow suddenly becomes so applicable in something, and you get to share that in a moment. How many times have we wanted to say some line from Casablanca or something, and one day you get a moment to say it or something because it works or it fits, and it's really when it happens. And then when you recognize it and you know it, and your brain says it, and you get to say it in life, oh, there's no better feeling than that for me. So with my theater background or my acting background, uh, that's been pretty amazing. The other part of the origin story of all this is I started writing when I was 14 up at Interlochen in a reader's theater class. We did Spoon River Anthologies, which is a reader's theater production play of by Edgar Lee Masters, and it's uh, an anthology of basically epitaphs where the person who died from the grave stands up and says their life little story epitaph thing. It's a brilliant play. And at 14, our teacher told me, oh, the class's teacher told us all to write our own. And what a great exercise in writing that was. You know, what do you want to say about the world when you're 14? And just say, and then mine was chosen to be done last in the play, which I took as a great honor because it was leading the audience with what I had to say. And it got a standing ovation. It was one of those moments of just, and so my writing and my thoughts as a 14-year-old was validated and celebrated and, enjoyed and empowered. It was great. It was just, I can't describe any more of it that way, but that to me was my origin of writing. It was just brilliant. A moment
That's
like that.
Oh, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Do you see your children's books like The Phenomenal Phoenix or A Cloud and the Eye of the Beholder? Are they part of your same mission here, or is this something entirely
They
different?
are. They each like for example, Mommy Am I Beautiful? That's one of them. That's a thing that's in the self-help book, and it's talking about uh inner beauty. And it's how I always was amazed when I would see the Oscars and I would see celebrities say, "Oh, I care about the homeless," or "I care about this," or "I care about that cause." And then someone would ask them what they're wearing, and it was some $100,000 dress that they're only going to wear once, or it was some $1 million worth of jewelry that was. And it became just sort of this ostentatious, obscene thing to me that they didn't care about anybody but themselves. And it was like, come on. And so I wrote this book and, inspired by that, of how inner beauty is really more important. And so a 18-year-old girl going to prom, uh, tells her sister, asks her sister, you know, how do I look? And this little sister, 5-year-old, says, "You look beautiful." And the 18-year-old goes, "I know I'm beautiful. I'm just asking if I look pretty." And she said, "What's the difference?" And she says, "Go ask mommy while I get ready." And she goes downstairs with her teddy bear and asks mom, "Mommy, am I beautiful?" And the mom explains to the child the difference between, you know, externally being pretty or handsome and being inner beauty, which again, beautiful is an acronym for be yourself, enlightened, alive, unique, trustworthy, intelligent, faithful, and unconditionally loving. And those are all internal character traits. And I always thought, again, celebrities or anybody that's, you know, I always thought Kardashians, how dare them be the way, say they care about people when all they care about is themselves. And to have that, if they really thought about inner beauty and being those character traits, how wonderful would, things be more so than and then when I find, celebrities who actually are nice in their interviews and have a reputation for being good people when the camera's not watching, I think that's really, again, something valuable. And so the children's books, each one, uh, has its own, The Phenomenal Phoenix, all about overcoming adversity. Something Small is all about how the little things in life make a difference, big difference. Um, the Cloud in the Eye of the Beholder is how we grow in life and can perceive clouds as, a weather person goes, "Oh, it's a cumulonimbus and this and that." And it's, and we're getting zero point 0.4 centimeters of rain tomorrow and all this stuff. But a kid can go, oh, that's a bunny rabbit, or that's a turtle, or that's a, and it's such a great different perspective. And how I think all humans, especially adults, should look with both eyes open, the child's eye and the adult eye, and be able to, yes, take an umbrella, but still sing and dance in the rain, and be able to know that in every life, a little rain must fall. And in every life, you know, a rainbow will come at the end, or, come afterwards. And I think those are, again, that book is all about perspective and how one looks at the world. And then there's me sitting in my mother's lap, sitting in the lap of love. And that's a Mother's Day book. And then the last two are me fishing with my dad, and 30 years apart. When I first learned in Montana with him, and then here in Michigan, I fish with him every year. And how it's not just about fishing, it's about talking and telling stories and going to breakfast at, this greasy spoon, delicious, cinnamon roll thing that I could eat back then when I, didn't have, there wasn't a diabetic, those kind of things. And to me, that's, so each part of the book or each of the children's books has some kind of theme in the self-help books. And I think so they all can tie together. Yes.
Fantastic.
My,
Wow.
my smoke.
How do you go from you're 14, you're inspired to write, I think I'm a writer, to I've written 12 books, and why now? What finally broke the cycle of waiting, planning, overthinking?
All my life, I've been, written journal. I've done I've done journaling. And been a writer of, you know, back when people did cursive and, in high school, and actually wrote essays and did things, that they turned in. Um, so I've always been a writer, and finally, again, all my life, just putting together stories. I think one of the things that I did when I was an early teenager in the 1970s was Dungeons and Dragons came out. And I started, with one of my best friends from Interlochen. I started telling stories. I was the dungeon master. He was a character, and I would make up characters and be all those characters, and he made up a character. So we just started back and forth making up stories with each other whenever we were walking anywhere. And I loved making him laugh and going on the adventures and doing all the things with that. And it became, and then I started writing down stories and things that happened to me, that truly made a difference. There are several stories in the books that, of things that have happened to me where I finally, knew the system worked. So there are several stories. Uh, One of the first, examples of the book, I had a pretty, about a 2 hour long presentation, public speaking presentation that I could give to people, teenagers. And one day I gave it, and one of the core exercises in the speech was to have 20 students come up on stage, and each one was given a index card, and they were told to write 5, uh, external character traits and 5 internal character traits that they had, and then put them in a sorting hat. And they each one took out somebody else's, and all they had to do was walk across the stage as that person and say one line of that person. Well, at one end of the line was a 4'6" mousy, owl glasses girly girl. For this is all things that she put on her card. Brainy, whatever. And at the other end of the line was a 6'4" captain of the basketball team, large and in charge, extreme, macho man, everything the exact opposite of her. And guess who picked whose card? And it was, she picked the card out, and I watched her do it. She looked at it, looked down the line to him, and just had what I can only describe as a pre-panic attack. It was just, start heavy breathing. It just said, I realized sort of what she was up against. And I walked up to her and I looked at her and said, "Are you okay?" And she was okay. She just was, she was beside herself. There was no way she was like, and she was like, she showed me the card. I'm like, yes, I know. And I said, okay, just make a choice. Just make a commitment, just with all your energy and all your passion and everything you can do. And you're going to go last. So you'll have about 20 minutes before you have to do your thing. And I said, you're going to be great. Just, and she goes, okay, and it was just sort of a commitment, it was just sort of a, you know, and then she said, and then, so then everyone else, the 19 other people did their thing and they were fine. They were good. And then out of the wing, she comes out on her tippy toes, as swinging her arms, as large and in charge. And she gets to the center of the stage. She turns to the audience, puts her hands up in the air, and yells at the top of her lungs everything that was on his card. And then sort of puts her arms down and starts to go off stage. But then the whole audience erupted into a standing ovation of shock and joy because they had never seen this girl do that. And even the captain of the basketball team, he was beside himself. He was in, what is this thing? And she turned back to the audience and just like deer in the headlights, wonderfully though, froze and sort of, heavy breathing and everything. And I bolted up to her and I sort of turned her to look at me, and she's looking at me like just an explosion. And she goes, and and I said, all right, two things. Never forget this. Never forget this for the rest of your life. One, know that who you are right now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's important because who you are is what you are. Who you are is, and all that. But also know, too, that for the rest of your life, who you are and what you are is a matter of choice, not a matter of chance. Because you just chose to be someone completely opposite of you. You just chose to be and she looked at me and it was bright light, illumination moment for her. And she went, okay, and winked at me. And it was in that moment, I knew that my system worked and it had to be written down and put in a book. And it was like, this has to be, and so it was okay, and it was just, that was it. And so I, you know, not too long after that, I started writing the book. And it was, uh, just the idea of, putting it all together. And there's other stories like that of where I was, in, community theater productions of me being Harvey, or Elwood P. Dowd in that play production. There's other stories of, uh, where my best friend Patrick, of 20 years and everything that he had said to me in life, uh, and all the character discussions we had about things and everything that, uh, just, he was a brother to me. And he died in a truck accident and just not wearing a seatbelt. Um, and things that and how and what that meant to me as a uh, in my late 20s, almost 30 years old person. Um, and other stories are in there. There's one of uh, another interlocking story. I was this was in 1985. Um, I tried out for Hamlet in a student production of Hamlet. I thought I nailed the production, the audition, and I thought I was really going to get a lead. And when I read the call sheet, I got Francisco the guard, and I was really upset. And the director apparently come around the corner and seen me reading the call sheet, and I was really upset. And again, I was probably 15 years old, and he looked at me and walked over to me and said, "Oh, you're upset." And I said, "Yeah, why?" I went into a little, 15-year-old temper tantrum tirade of why didn't I get a lead, whatever. And he goes, "Okay, you're upset. I get that. Um, but what you got to realize is Francisco the guard says the first line in the play. And if you don't open up your mouth and say the line with commitment and diction and clarity and, on time and all that it needs, then the greatest piece of literature known to humankind does not start." And I went, huh. And he goes, "I need to know what you're going to do." And I'm like, and I'm 15. And I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I?" And I'm like, he goes, "I need to know what your attitude about this is, because you can either be bummed about it and upset and not say your line, and I need to know now, or you can tell me you're going to give it all your commitment and whatever." And I thought about it. I said, "Okay, I'll give it my all, my commitment and everything." He goes, "Great. Now apply that same that same attitude towards life. Whatever part you play, whatever, you know, whatever, whether you're guard or Hamlet, do it with commitment and energy and diction and, truth and everything that goes into it and good attitude and all those things. And the greatest life you will ever live will continue and thrive." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And again, that's a moment in life where theater and a lesson and a director and a mentor and a guider said to me, "Your attitude means everything to this world of being in a play production. Not just a play production, but the light, the world, everything that you are, the universe. Your attitude will color everything. Your attitude will mean everything. Your attitude will guide everything in the greatest life you will ever live. The singular greatest life you'll ever live." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I got to put this stuff in a book." And because, like, okay, it's a moral imperative to put this thing in a book. Otherwise, all these little stories and all these little things, you know, don't get the greatest life to live. And then all of it was persistence. And I wanted, I had manuscripts for all 12 books. I finally put it out there for uh my I went on Facebook and I said, "Does anybody know an illustrator?" And one of my close friends called me up and said, "Well, um, I know this guy who does great illustrations, uh, but you got to email him first." And he knew I was a huge Jim Henson Muppet fan. I have been all my life. And he goes, "You're gonna love his email. It's Muppet Man 48." So he had me at hello. He had me before I even emailed him. And so when I emailed him, he said, "Yep, I'll do all 10 books at once." And then about a year later, that same friend had uh, a publisher in mind, and that he had known the or the book coach at this place for about 10 years. So, and then I called up the publisher. The publisher said, "Yep, we'll do all 12 books at once." And that was huge for me because I didn't want to put one out at a time and trickle effect and have, I wanted them all done at once. And they were. And it was, you know, I started writing the self help book in '03. I started writing all the manuscripts, and that's 22 years later now. So, if you're going to preach persistence in your book, you might as well live it. And so that's what I've been doing. And that's how I got them all published finally, all illustrated, all done, and a legitimate publisher. And, uh, then it's okay. Now what? Market them, put them out there. Everyone's saying, "Oh, you got to get on podcast. You got to get into public speaking. I've done public speaking before. So get into public speaking, do that again, get into the local schools, get into the local universities and get into places." So it's okay. Call them up, persistence, send out the emails, put together a resume, and then listen to the webinars, find the people that are going to help you and mentor you, and never give up. Again, it's 101. How many entrepreneurs have you said, never give up? And then, okay, so you don't give up. You keep going and get it, then you say your line when you can. And, you know, who knows where things are going to go. And then by the grace of my parents uh, and their guidance and, uh, you know, I'm everything I'm doing with a net and safety net of, you know, paying my bills, keeping my day job at my grocery store and, doing, uh, getting health insurance and all these things that you just got to do as an adult, but never give up on your dream and, do it. So you got to balance that. And that's been the journey. Um, I'm 56 years old. When is it supposed to happen? I don't know. It's live theater. It's whatever. It's live life. You never know when it's going to work or how it's going to work. It just does, and then move forward.
It's good. What do you imagine someone might think when they pick up your book and see phrases like "live the life fantastic"? Maybe that sounds great, but not for me. What's the subtle fear you're writing into?
One of the things in the book is to eliminate uh, eliminate fear, in that and fear is false expectations, apparent reality. Um, and that's also on the back of the book. And, so when they look at the book and says, "What's this all about?" and they turn it over and read the little blurbs, that's on there. Um, I think someone reading my book or deciding whether they want to buy it, they'll see, uh, I think every self help book that I've ever read, or, when I did my research for it, there's always that, they're all like diet plans. They all, people need to lose weight or whatever, or exercise or be healthy. And they're all, but they all say, they all say the same things. It's just the user friendly ones that people will actually do. And so I think my way is, using theater, using, you know, not just stage theater, but movie theater characters and things like that, and talking about uh, those kind of adventures and putting it in terms of easy exercises and and the workbook is all inspirational quotes and journaling. And again, how many teenagers are ever asked what they think and feel? And given the opportunity to write it down. And it talks about, there's a whole section in the workbook about documentary and dramatary movies to watch, like Gandhi and things that are just really great movies. Um, but it also talks about the Lord of the Rings series, and get the DVDs and watch the making of them, because that's a Herculean task of 7 or 8 years that those people spent doing those movies. And I think for a teenager to pick up a book and say, this is something that I can use to work on today and to just presentize my life and get some control over it. Ooh, that's a powerful thing. I mean,
It's a
control,
powerful thing.
even the hint at control for any teenager, especially even adults nowadays. If I said, do this process in your head and do it in your heart, and you'll get some control over your own holistic self. If that doesn't inspire, picking up the book and buying it for $24.95, I don't know what.
Have you had someone tell you a specific book that you've written or story that you've told touch them deeply? And what did that moment feel like for you?
It's a great question. Um, with the Phenomenal Phoenix, uh, at the end, it talks about the whole legend of the Phoenix and how uh, there's that rebirth and uh, overcoming adversity metaphor that is the Phoenix. And at the end, it has the Jim Henson quote in it: "Take what you got and fly with it." Had a parent, you know, talk about their kid who's dealing with uh, health issues and all kinds of stuff, and who read the book and or was read the book, and they they did the crafts. They put they it shows at the end how to, you know, like it shows that in the now coloring book, but uh, in just the book, it shows the kids at the end with paper beaks on and wings that all the kids made, clearly like they would at a craft. And the kid had made his own beak and his own wings, and it gave him wings. And he was able to this is what the parent told me about how he was able to uh, really think himself healthy and feel himself, getting stronger and doing something. And that was, oh, okay. Yeah, that's what that's all.
Transference,
It was just,
transference.
yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, that's what that's all about. And uh, yeah. So and then with the self help book and workbook, I've mailed it to all kinds of friends and people. Um, you, and when people call me back and say, you know, this is I like one place I mailed it to recently, uh, a education center, and when I was asking if I can mail it to them, the woman on the phone, I said, in the book there's a thing called a click switch week, which is where like a whole high school does a click switch week, and high schools are all full of you know a gazillion clicks. And just like the story I told you where they switch cards, each person in the high school, this would be a facilitated week by the guidance counselors or by whatever. And I told this story to the education person. I said they would do this click switch week where each student would pick someone from a different clique and be that person for a week and walk in their shoes and figure out what they wear and why they wear it and figure out what they say and why they say it and who their friends are. And it'd be like the Breakfast Club. It would be you suddenly walk in everybody's shoes. And at the end of that week, there would be a debriefing. So you'd learn what it would be like to be the uh, invisible one in the hallways or the be the, you know, Captain Jock or whatever. You'd see what people, and then you would learn what those people are all about. How many boys would benefit from learning just what it would be like to be a girl for a day? And I realize that's got some implications and some, delicacies to it. But just, you know, how many boys make fun of the goth girl? And then if you picked her out of the hat and had to really talk to her and find out what she thinks and why she thinks it and why she wears the makeup she does or why she does whatever. And if you had to think about that for a week as a boy, your life would be changed. Your perspective on people. And I hope that Click Switch Week is picked up by high schools around the country. Even today, it's not about politics or about genders or about anything. Everything is about identity. And if you get to be somebody else just for a week and then talk about it with real professionals, and I think the world will be a much better place with a different perspective like that. I think that'd be something worth living to find out how that looks at the other end of that.
For sure. All right, in 3 minutes or less, three
Okay.
minutes or less, you've called your system character construction. Are you literally helping people build themselves like actors build roles? And how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, again, in the system, it's all about choices. It's all about doing your homework, you know, thinking about your past and about choices you've made in your past, and then presentizing yourself. And that's a big section of the book. And then, what's my motivation? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do with my life? Next, finding that character arc, not just, become a gazillionaire, because that's pointless if you ask me, but and purposeless if you ask me. But what kind of person do I want to be? Who do I want to be today? Again, in 3 minutes or less, who do I want to be today? What do I want to be today? What do I want to, when do I want to be? Where? And then that ultimate one, why? Again, every day you wake up, if you can on purpose know the answers to those questions, just like actors and actresses do in each and every scene they're in, and they have directors and they have all kinds of props and lighting, and they can, in the movies, do several takes. In life, you don't get so many takes. But sometimes if you really think of if you think of your surroundings and you make your choices on purpose and in that moment with conscious commitment, you're going to be way ahead of the learning curve. And especially as a teenager, if you can, the earlier you can do it. I'm 56, so I'm, experiencing all this stuff from my own books and living it a little later in life. But there are so many times in my life when now that I've written these books, where I look back and go, boy, if I had had my own book,
Are
I
you ready
realize,
for the next? Oh, go ahead.
I realize that's a little bit, existential, but, and I hope that's the case with, teenagers of tomorrow, or, anybody who, or adults even, who read these books and read the children's books to their own children. I
Yeah,
hope that that's the legacy.
it's good. All right, rapid fire round. Rapid fire round. Short answers to these. Word you overuse when writing.
Holistic.
It's good. What's always in your grocery cart?
Purpose.
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 What the heck's what's purpose?
Having a purpose with actions and choices.
That's always in your grocery cart? No, your grocery cart.
Oh, I thought you meant my metaphorical grocery cart.
No, no, real grocery cart.
Oh gosh, real grocery cart. Carb Master milk, which is the not lactose, diabetic carb milk. There's also uh coffee and oatmeal. Those are my breakfasts.
Okay.
Uh, all kinds of good stuff. But yeah, no, I got to watch what I eat because 56 has has a very different metabolism
Gotta be mindful. You
than
gotta be
26.
mindful.
Yeah, no, my diet has dramatically
Uh,
changed.
okay, next. If you had $500 to promote one book, what would you do with it? And remember, short answer.
Well, I had $600 and I got a lifetime scholarship access to the Youth Speakers University. And so that's probably the self-help book and workbook. Uh, K through 12, they teach you how to become a public speaker and start a public speaking business. And the training and access to their website and all, I got the scholarship for $600. So I did that and started that in January. And so that's what I did with $600.
Congratulations.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yep. Next. If you could wave a wand and put tailored time on one shelf, where would it be?
In every Barnes and Noble in the country.
Okay. What's your wildest, most unrealistic dream as a writer?
No dream worth having is unrealistic. So I would to answer that question, I don't do the word unrealistic. The dream is to live a living life where I feel alive every day with my books and my career and in my impassioned, empowered. Uh, it's very easy to be for me and my family and friends to be, for what I've been given to be content and comfortable. That's very, I've lived a very, gifted life in that capacity. The feeling of being alive and, you know, finding a girlfriend or, the things that are, share it with. But to be able to, be up on stage and be in the bookstores and be in the classrooms or wherever I get to share my passion with, or in the, hospitals or in the uh, Cabela's with the fishing books, wherever I go to feel alive doing it. That's the dream. And while I'm alive, live that reality, not just live that dream, but live that reality of just feeling a love a lot live doing it.
What scares you more, being ignored or being seen?
I fear nothing. I'm living a great life. I'm not, people ignore me. That's their life. I'm okay with that. It's not my life. Being seen, I'm perfectly happy being seen. Uh, I I understand for most people, public speaking is, the primary fear in life, even above death, but for me, I love it. So I fear nothing. I have the luxury of, again, great parents, great friends of 40 plus years. people that love me. And, you know, I own my own home. I have health insurance. I fear nothing. Um, so it's a very surprising existence sometimes. When I answer the question, what am I? What do I honestly don't, I fear nothing. And
Good.
yeah, it is what it is.
I love it. That's an acceptable answer. All right, Andrew, where can people go to connect with you, grab the workbook, or dive into one of your children's stories?
The self-help book, workbook, and 12 other books. The coloring books are also now out. They're all on Amazon Author Central page. They're on my website, tailoredtime.com, TAYLORED time.com. That website is in the process of being rebuilt. So it might give a little time to see the best result of it. But things are
I'm
being
staring at that website right now. Everybody, you can go buy the books right now. Don't listen to Andrew. You can go to tailoredtime.com, click on books, and you can buy his books right there. So
okay.
it might not be the prettiest right now, but it's more than sufficient. And at some point, it's
Awesome.
going to be sexy.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, thank you for that. I understand that my answer sometimes is a little guarded. Yes.
Yes, yes. Uh, and that's a wrap on this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. Big thanks to Andrew Taylor for showing us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it quietly publishes. If this if
No,
this conversation if this conversation stirred something in you, check out his books at tailoredtime.com. That's tailoredtime.com. Whether it's the Phoenix, the Cloud, or your own life fantastic moment, you are not alone. Until next time, stay focused, stay bold, and let's go speak on some podcasts.
thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.